Today we are going to build a Universal Studio-like intro in DaVinci Resolve. I will show you the whole process on how to make this whole animation. You will learn here about a lot of stuff like 3D shapes, 3D rendering, bump maps, textures, 3D text, lens flares, and many other things. I will divide this tutorial in parts. So the first part would be to design the Earth with all of its elements. Then we will go ahead and prepare and design the 3D text, which will be a text rotating around the Earth. The third part will be adding animations, and the last part will be the adding of lens flare and some final adjustments before rendering the final animation. As you can see, I'm in DaVinci Resolve in a new project. First of all, what I did, or what you need to do, is go to this gear icon here, click it, and you will need to change the timeline frame rate to 30 and the playback frame rate to 30 as well. I have already done that, so I will close it. Next, in the media pool, you will see that I've already uploaded some textures. I have a bump map, a clouds map, an earth map at nighttime, and a Milky Way background. I will provide you with all of the links to download these textures. You will find the download links in the description of this video. Now let's continue. First, we will need to add a new fusion composition. So right click in this media pool area, right click, new fusion composition. We will change the duration to 25 because that is the duration of the intro made by Universal Studio. In the clip name, I will type intro, and the frame rate will be 30. Now we need to drag this composition to the timeline. And now we are ready to go to the Fusion tab. I will do some arrangements, right click, arrange tools to grid, so everything snaps to the grid. I will save this project intro, so remember to save often because I'm using the free version of DaVinci Resolve, and in many times, because this tutorial is very processor intensive, it might cause the DaVinci Resolve to crash. All of these textures, I have resized them in Photoshop to 4K resolution. If you have a better computer configuration, you might use high resolutions. Now let's go back to Fusion tab. First thing we will design, as I said, is the Earth. So let's start with a sphere 3D node, or with a shape 3D node. Control space. Search for shape 3D. Need to change the settings to the sphere. The radius will be 1. I will change the base subdivisions to 100 and the height subdivisions to 100 so that we get a higher quality sphere. Let's see it on the right screen. So this is what the base divisions do. If you increase the subdivisions, you will get a high resolution or better looking sphere. In each 3D scene we need a merge 3D node, so select sphere, control space, merge 3D node. We also need a render 3D node, select the merge 3D node, and I will connect the render 3D node to media out node. We can rename the shape 3D, select the shape 3D node, hit F2 and name it to Earth. Now we select the merge 3D node, control space, add a camera 3D node. I will also add a spotlight and an ambient light. Spotlight. All will be connected to the merge 3D node. Ambient light. Okay, we can move these lights up here. And now we can go and edit the settings of these nodes. Let's start with the spotlight. Change the intensity to 0.677. The cone angle to 7228. the penumbra to 1339 and the drop off to 13.1. Now we need to go to the shadows. We will disable the shadows because we won't be using shadows in this project. Then we go to the transform tab of the spotlight. We need to change the transform translation and the rotation parts. So let's start with the translation. 3.215. And we will change only the Y rotation of the sphere. Now to be able to see the effect, we have to go to the renderer node. We will change the camera to camera 3D 1 and we will be using the OpenGL render type. The OpenGL render type allows us to utilize our graphic card or video card, and it will allow us to render this video much quicker. And now we also need to enable the lighting. Now we are not seeing anything here. We have to go and move the camera so that the sphere fits within the camera view angle or camera view section. To do that, I will move in the 3D space and will rotate the view. I'm doing this rotation by holding the Alt key and clicking the middle mouse wheel and moving the mouse. You can move up and down if you just scroll the mouse middle wheel. If you click the Control key and scroll the middle mouse wheel, you will zoom in and zoom out. If you click only the mouse, if you click and hold the mouse middle wheel and move it around, it will allow you to pan around the 3D scene. As I said, I'm going to go to the right side of the sphere and we need to move the camera backwards in the Z axis. So select this arrow over here, or you can go to the transform tab and move the Z value. We want to move this so that the whole sphere fits in the screen or in the view, and this will be the final camera position for this animation. Just remember that, because we will need that when we do the camera animation. Maybe move it a little bit forward. Okay, like so. Let's edit some other settings. We can go to the ambient light. We just need to change the intensity. Intensity will be 0.0055, and as you saw, this ambient light changes the lighting of the scene. Hit the Merge 3D node and let's see it on the left screen. Now I think we are good with this 3D part. Now we can go and add the textures. To add the textures, go to the Media Pool tab. We will start by adding the Earth map. And let's rename that to Earth map. I will add the clouds. Rename it to clouds. We can merge this together by left clicking this edge here on the clouds and releasing on the edge of the Earth map node. Now let's click the merge one and see it on the left screen. We need to change the apply mode to screen. And now we have more clouds. If you don't want to apply the clouds texture, you are free to do so, but I will apply it. I will change the blend. So let's see what the blend does. It changes the opacity of the clouds texture. I will leave this to 0.5. And remember to save the project. Or you can set the DaVinci Resolve to autosave, but I didn't do that for this project, so I will save manually. Next, we can go ahead and connect it to the Earth. And now the texture is applied, but we need to apply other maps as well, since we will apply a bump node and then merge another material, Earth Night texture, to get the final composition we want. To add a bump node, we need to drag the bump texture to the node section, rename this to bump. Then we will need to add a bump map node. Select the bump texture, control space, bump map. Now to be able to add the bump map to the texture, we need, in between the merge one node and the earth node, we need to add a cook torrents node. The cook torrents node is the node that is used with textures or materials in DaVinci Resolve, and it will allow us to add different layers to these textures, like the specular layer, the diffuse layer, or the bump layer. Now select the merge one node, control space, search for cook torrents. To add the bump node, you will go to the bump node with the right mouse, click on this edge and drag it to the cook torrents. Now you have this menu, you will need to select the bump map material. And now to see the changes or the difference that the bump map makes, we can expand this viewer and zoom in and see these places. These places of the earth has some mountains. We can see the difference it makes. So the bump map, the source image type will be height map, and the height channel will leave it to luminance. But if we change the height scale, as you can see, the mountains or the higher parts of the earth are emphasized. I will give it a value of 7. You can give it a different value depending on your needs or your preferences. Let's zoom out. The next thing, I will add some color adjustments. So in between the merge one node and the cook torrents, select the merge one node, control space and select color corrector. In the color corrector node, we will do some adjustments. So let's go to the saturation, the contrast, the gain, and the brightness to 0.1. And I think we are done with this part. Now the final texture we need to add is the earth night. Let's bring it in the node section, rename it to earth night. Now since this is a different material and we want to merge two different materials, we can apply a material merge node. So let's move this on the left, and in between the cook torrents and the earth or the sphere, we will add a node called material merge. So click the cook torrents node and control space, material merge. Let's bring this earth night to this material merge node, and you see the difference here. But from this earth night, we just want this highlighted parts, or the what would be the lights in the screen. We will need to show them to the previous texture. So to do that, we will select the earth night node, control space and search for color gain node. And in the gain section, move the alpha slider to 0. And now this is what we get. Only the lights of the previous texture are applied to the previous node. Now we will need to change the blend value for the material merge node. Select it, go to the blend node, 0.8454. And we are almost done with the earth. The final things that we will do for the earth is to add some rays and some glow. After the render 3D, so we are moving from 3D space to 2D space. Let's click the render 3D node, control space and add and search for rays, light rays. We will also add a glow. Now let's edit the light rays. The selected input will be final image, source of rays, bright regions. We'll change the threshold to 0, then the ray directions will be to an angle. The angle value is -180. Now in the ray drop off, we will select keep shape of source, change the length, soften and brightness. We will change the blend. Now we need to go to the glow node and change the settings. We'll change the apply mode to merge under, and since we want this outline, we will increase the blue scale value in the color scale. Now it looks more bluish. And in the blending settings, if you move the slider values, you can have the atmosphere look brighter or stronger, even getting this strong glowing effect. I will use this value. Okay, so pretty much we are done with the designing of the Earth. Let's save the project. Okay, now we can move with the second part, and that is the designing of the 3D text or Earth rotational text. Now we can move in this area. We will add a text 3D node. Let's write universal here, or you can type your channel name or whatever you want. We'll select a font of copper plate, Gothic bold. Let me show this to the left screen. Now we have this text. Let me zoom in. First of all, we will have to add some extrusion to this text. I will go to the extrusion. Let me change the size first. The size will be 0.71, the tracking 1.039, and let me zoom in. Now let's add the extrusion, 0.07 extrusion depth. Now we cannot see this very clearly, but if you go here and select the lights option, then it's much clearer. Now the next thing, if you check the Universal Studio intro, you see that the text has a kind of gold outline added to it. So we need to first add the outline. To be able to duplicate this text, we will have to control copy this and then control shift V, control C, control shift V to get a complete similar instance or a clone to this text. This green line means that we have a completely same clone of the previous node, of the text 3D node. It means that whatever we change here, it will be applied to this node as well. And to be able to change only some of the properties of this text, like the extrusion or the color, we will need to instance those properties. I will show you how to do that. Select the instance text 3D node and go to the extrusion depth, right click the instance, then bevel depth, the instance, and bevel width, the instance. Now to see the changes, I will go to the shading tab, and we will also instance the color. Somewhere here in this area, right click here and select the instance color group. Now all of the colors, red, green, blue, and alpha channels are instanced. And now if I show this to the screen by clicking the merge one node and hitting the number 1, see that the color is changing, but we are just affecting the color of this instance text 3D node. Now let's go back to the text tab, and we will have to change the extrusion. I will add an extrusion of 0.04. The depth, bevel depth will be 0.0091 and the width 0.0146. And now this is what we have. Now we want to move this so that it fits inside the previous text or the inline text. This will serve only as an outline. Now we need to go to the transform tab and instance the Z translation node, the Z translation axis. To instance it, and then we can move this forward. If you can do that by the slider, but the slider gives you bigger values or higher values to make the changes smaller, you can use this area here by moving the mouse to the right or to the left. To get even more precise values, you can hold the control key so that the movements are much smaller, and make sure that it's somewhere in the middle. Well, I think it is good for this part, but always you can change them later on if you want. Now the next part would be to add the materials. To add the materials, I will be using some material preset. You will find them in the effects library. Go to templates, shaders, and then I will use this material for the inner text, and then I will use the gold bump for the instance text or the outline. To add a material to the text 3D node, we need to add an replace material node. So select the text 3D node, Control space, replace material, and now connect this to this text. As you can see, the material is being added. Now we will do the same for the instance 3D text. Select the instance 3D node, Control space, replace material, and I will add the gold text, the gold material. But if I select the gold bump material and hit number 1, you see that we have these tiles, we don't need them. So double click on this group to expand it, delete this background node, and we'll also delete this rectangle so that we just get the gold material. Control E to regroup it, and then go to the merge 2D node and show width, and we'll have something like this. To change some material properties, you can select this group and then play with the alpha or the opacity. You can change the color also, the intensity, other properties, but I will leave the defaults for now, and you can change them later. Now I think we are good so far. Next thing we would like to add is to achieve that rotational effect. We need to get the text to be shown in a circle. To do that, I will first connect this merge 3D2 node to the merge 3D1 node. Now in the right screen we will see the text behind or in the middle of the earth. Now to achieve that rotation we want, select the text 3D node. Whatever we change in this node, it will be applied to the instance 3D node except the instance properties. So we will go with the text 3D node selected, go to the transform tab, select words from here, go to rotation, and in the X put -90. Now go back to this layout and change the type to circle, and we will also change the rotation, change the X value to 90. Now we need to play with the width. The maximum allowed width is 1, but to give it a higher number, just go and type it. We will add number 4, and now you see that we achieved this effect. Let's show it to the left screen and let's zoom it in. Now you see that finally we got the result for the text, the result that we wanted. Select the text 3D node. You can play with the size and the width. I will maybe add this size and then change the width, or make the width even smaller depending on your needs. But I want to move this text a little bit down, so we will go to the translation, to the transform tab, and change the Y value. So this will be the final position of this text, and then we can move to the next part, which is the animation. Now to animate this, I will show you how you can rotate this around the globe. If you go to the layout tab and change the Y value, you see that the text rotates around the earth. but we will also need to move it to give it an angle so that we can replicate the same effect as in the Universal Studio intro. Now, this is the last position of the text, the final position, but we want that to end at frame 550. Type 550 here so that we leave a little bit of time. Even after the animation is done, we will have a little bit of time to see this text in this position. Now we need to check what we need to change here. So basically these two values, the Y and the Z values, will change, so we can keyframe that. And now we can go to frame 0. And now we can move the slider. So let's move this behind the earth. But to be able to see through the earth, we can do this. Go to the sphere or the shape 3D node and enable the wireframe. So now we can see behind the earth. And now we need also to change the Z value of the text, Z translation, so that we get an angle. And now if we would play this, this is what we would get. Let me uncheck the wireframe so that we see the earth. It will be hard to show you the exact results at real time because this is a very processor consuming animation, but one thing we could do is go to the playback and change the proximal to quarter so that we lower the resolution, and hopefully it will play much smoother, but with a lower resolution. That's why it's blurry. I think now we have the desired effect. Now we can go and animate the sphere or the earth. We need the earth to rotate only in this axis, so go to the transform, and if I change the Y value, you see that the earth rotates. But I will also like to change another angle, so we just make it a little bit, maybe minus 18 is good. Now, since the earth will not stop rotating, we can go to the ending of this animation, and we just need to keyframe this Y position with Y value. Keyframe it here and go to frame 1, frame 0, and then add a keyframe, and then well, let me undo this. I would like also to change this earth value here to minus 20, the X value. Maybe this looks better. And now we can go and to the last frame, add a keyframe here, and we will the final earth position to something like this. The final position of the earth will be maybe here. We will leave it to be 180. Now we can go to frame 0, add a keyframe, and we will add the beginning position. So the beginning position, let us make that to 39. Always you can play with this settings later to get your result, your better result, but for now I think this is good. And now the most complicated part is to get the desired effect when moving or animating the camera. Now to animate the camera, we will go step by step. If you watch the Universal Studio intro, you will see that the camera starts from an angle somewhere like this and it moves back on. And when the text is here, the camera is close to this character here, and then it moves backwards. So we'll select the camera node. We will need to add a keyframe in this frame 550, because this is the final position of the camera. And if we go to the camera translation, these are all of the properties that might change for this animation, so we will add a keyframe for all of them. And now we can move back on to frame 0 Now we can do the animation. Let's make this closer. I can go to the earth and type wireframe again so that I can see better. And we can move this here. And we can rotate the camera. And I can go to the text, to frame 0. I will move the text a little bit back so that it doesn't show up immediately. Now if we move on, the camera moves backwards and it slowly goes to that, rotates back to the original position, and then maybe in this part we can slower the camera movement by moving it back to the closer to the earth, maybe like this, and then move in the timeline. And then move on until the text comes to this position. Then we will need the camera to be close to this text. And it goes to its final position. I will leave this animation to here. We will see if you got the desired result after you do the rendering. Now we can move on. I would like to add some spotlight to the text area here. So just go ahead and select Merge 3D 2 node, Control Space, Spotlight. And I will show you shortly what I will try to make with this effect. Let me zoom in. And now actually let me go back to 2 screens. Now if I select this node, you will see that it's affecting only the text and not the earth. So I will change the values of the spotlight, lower the intensity, disable the shadows. And what I want to do with this is to give it like a spotlight animation at the end when the text comes to its final position. We will just have to animate the X position. Okay, now here when this is the final position of the text, so from here I can add a keyframe for the X transform for this spotlight, which affects only the text 3D, and then go to the frame 650, add the keyframe, move it to the right. Now if I play this is what I will see. You can always change the cone angle, the penumbra, drop off, or the intensity. I will also add a directional light here so that I make this brighter. Let's change the intensity, and this is what I will see. Let me go to the earth and disable the wireframe, and we are almost done. Now one last thing I would like to do is go back to the edit page, move this up. I will add the background here, and I will change the opacity to 25. As you saw, I added the Milky Way background, which I downloaded from pixabay.com. I will provide you with a link in the description section. And what I want this background to do is rotate a little bit so that it fits with this animation, but I will need to zoom it out a little bit. Go to frame 0 and add a rotation angle keyframe. Let's give it a value of 18, and as it goes back by the end of the animation, add a keyframe and hit number 0 here, and it will give it a rotation. As you can see, maybe in this part we don't have a good animation of the camera, but you can fix that. Let us leave this to you like a homework, because the animation of the camera, I would say it's the most complicated part of this animation. I think you now know how to do that. You just have to spend a little bit more time on it to get the desired result. And now I think we have a good effect. Now the last thing you would add here, we'll just go quickly. I won't show you the whole result. I will just show you how to add a lens flare. You will go to the Fusion tab, go to the lens flare in the FX library templates, and I used the lens flare version 21. I will add that node after the glow node. Let me show it to the screen until... As you can see, the lens flare is added. Now to edit this lens flare, just double click it and you can change the values one by one. I will leave that as well for your homework so that you achieve the desired effect. Well, I think I showed you all the things you required. The final part would be to render this. It might take a long time for you depending on your computer configuration. For me it took maybe half an hour or so. One last thing you would like to do before you render is just add some motion blur to the renderer, but adding motion blur will add to the rendering time, so be careful when using it. So guys, I think I showed you everything you need. If you watch this tutorial in entirety, step by step, you will get this nice Universal Studio-like intro in DaVinci Resolve. Maybe you will have to do some other adjustment or spend more time to get it to look more realistic by changing the camera movement or the 3D text movement, but my goal was to show you the places or the way how to make most of the stuff. And always remember to save your project, because DaVinci Resolve might crash in the middle of your work. It happened to me many times. I hope you liked this tutorial. Make sure to subscribe, because I will be doing more of these tutorials in DaVinci Resolve. If you like to learn more about DaVinci Resolve, I already have a playlist which you can check by clicking the card above. I hope you learned a lot of things from this tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them in the section below. I would be glad to see your results. Thank you for watching.